Imagine sailing the high seas and suddenly a beautiful song fills the air. Or is it a horrifying shriek? In this video, we're diving deep into the ancient myths to unmask the true danger behind the siren's sweet serenade and the harpy's fearsome cry. Which mythical creature's song is more likely to be your last? Stick around to find out which legendary voice sends shivers down your spine. Hello myth lovers, and welcome back to the Nightforge. Today we're embarking on a journey into the heart of Greek mythology to settle a debate as old as time itself. Harpies versus sirens. They're both winged, they're both dangerous, and they've both been confusing people for centuries. So, what's the real story? Let's untangle these myths and find out who's who in this epic clash of legendary creatures. First up, let's talk origins. Where did these fearsome females come from? Let's start with the Harpies. Their name literally means snatchers, which is a pretty big clue about their personality. According to the poet Hesiod, they were the daughters of the Mars, a sea god, and the Oceanid Electra. This makes them sisters to Iris, the rainbow goddess and messenger of the gods, so they have some pretty divine connections. Originally, they were depicted as beautiful, winged maidens, swift as the wind, but over time, their image took a much darker, more monstrous turn. They became these grotesque bird women with the face of an old hag, the body of a vulture, and terrifyingly sharp claws. Their main job description: punishing the wicked on behalf of the gods. Acting as agents of divine retribution, there were spirits of the storm winds, capable of snatching people and things right off the face of the earth. Now, let's shift our gaze to the sirens. Their parentage is a bit more debated, but most myths link them to the river god Achelous and one of the muses, either Terpsichore, the muse of dance, or Melpomene, the muse of tragedy. This lineage, as Kiet explains, their divine, irresistible musical talent. Unlike the Harpies, sirens were almost always associated with beauty and allure. In early art, they were shown as birds with the heads of women, sometimes with arms, sometimes without. Later on, especially during the Roman era and into the Middle Ages, their image famously transformed into the mermaids we often picture today, half woman, half fish, but their core identity was always tied to their voice. They weren't agents of divine punishment, they were just deadly. They lived on a rocky island, surrounded by the bones of sailors who had been lured to their doom by their enchanting songs. Their motivation wasn't justice, it was simply their nature. So, we have the Harpies, the divine snatchers and storm spirits, and the sirens, the deadly singers with a muse for a mother. Right away, we can see a major difference in their purpose. Harpies were instruments of the god's wrath, while sirens were a natural, albeit deadly, hazard of the sea. Now, let's get to the most famous part: their methods of mesmerism and deceit. This is where the real showdown begins. Let's talk about the Harpies' song. To be honest, calling it a song is being generous. The Harpies weren't known for their beautiful voices. Their cries were described as horrifying shrieks that could instill terror in the hearts of mortals. Their main method of torment wasn't seduction, but pure, unadulterated harassment. The most famous story featuring the Harpies is that of King Phineas. This poor king was given the gift of prophecy by Apollo but made the mistake of revealing too much of the god's plans. As punishment, Zeus sent the Harpies to plague him. Every time a feast was set before Phineas, the Harpies would swoop down from the sky. They would snatch away most of the food and defile whatever was left with their foul droppings, leaving behind an unbearable stench. Phineas was left starving and miserable. The Harpies' attack was a physical and psychological assault. They didn't lure you in. They descended upon you like a nightmare. Their power was in their speed, their filth, and the sheer terror they inspired. It was a direct, brutal, and disgusting form of punishment. On the other side of the ring, we had the sirens and their legendary, lethal lullaby. Their weapon was pure, hypnotic beauty. Homer's Odyssey gives us the most iconic depiction of their power. The sorceress Circe warns Odysseus about the sirens, telling him they bewitch all men who come near them. Anyone who hears their song is compelled to steer their ship toward the sound, only to be dashed against the rocks and perish. The Sirens' island, Antimassa, was described as being littered with the skeletons of their victims, whose flesh had long since rotted away. What makes the Sirens' call so uniquely dangerous is its psychological nature. They didn't just sing a pretty tune, they sang a song of knowledge, promising to tell sailors everything they desired to know. To Odysseus, they sang of his glorious victories at Troy, playing on his pride and his thirst for glory. They customized their song for each victim, targeting their deepest desires and weaknesses. It was an irresistible promise of ultimate knowledge and fulfillment. The deception was brilliant. They offered the one thing a hero or a scholar couldn't resist: the truth, and used it as bait for a deadly trap. Unlike the Harpy's shrieks of terror, the Siren's song was a whisper of ecstasy that led to oblivion. So, we have a clear contrast. The Harpy's method is one of brute force and revulsion, while the Siren's is one of subtle, psychological seduction. One is a storm you can see coming. The other is a beautiful melody that you don't realize is deadly until it's too late. So, which creature would you rather face? A creature that torments you until you beg for release, or one that sings you sweetly into your grave? Let us know your choice in the comments below. Now, let's explore some of their most famous appearances in mythology to see them in action. We've already mentioned King Phineas and the Harpies. His rescue came at the hands of Jason and the Argonauts. Two of the Argonauts, Zeus and Calais, who were sons of the North Wind, had wings themselves. They chased the Harpies away and were about to finish them off when the goddess Iris intervened, promising that the Harpies would never bother Phineas again. This story cements the Harpies' role as pests and tormentors, a problem to be solved by heroes. They are a physical obstacle. The Siren's most famous encounter, of course, is with Odysseus. Following Circe's advice, Odysseus had his crew plug their ears with beeswax so they couldn't hear the song. But, ever curious, Odysseus wanted to hear the legendary melody for himself. So he had his men tie him securely to the mast of the ship, with strict orders not to release him, no matter how much he begged, and beg he did. When he heard the Siren's enchanting voices promising him knowledge and glory, he struggled and pleaded to be set free, but his faithful crew only tied him tighter. He became the only man to have heard the Siren's song and lived to tell the tale. This story highlights the sheer, irresistible power of the Siren's voice. It wasn't something you could fight with strength, but only with cunning and preparation. Another hero who faced the Sirens was Orpheus, the greatest musician in all of mythology, who was traveling with Jason and the Argonauts. When the Argo sailed past the Sirens' island, they began their deadly song, but Orpheus was ready. He took out his lyre and played his own music, so beautiful and powerful that it completely drowned out the Sirens' voices. Most of the crew were captivated by Orpheus's song and safely ignored the Sirens. Only one Argonaut, Butes, succumbed to the lure, but he was saved by the goddess Aphrodite. Some versions of the myth even say that the Sirens, defeated and humiliated at being outsung, threw themselves into the sea and drowned. This story is fascinating because it shows that the only way to defeat a song of pure magic is with an even more powerful song. So, Harpy encounters are about physical confrontation and endurance, while Siren encounters are battles of willpower and wit. The heroes who face Harpies need strength and speed. The heroes who face Sirens need cleverness, self-control, or a secret weapon of their own. Over the centuries, the lines between these two creatures have become incredibly blurred in popular culture. Why? Part of it is the shared trait of being a bird woman. This visual similarity is a big source of confusion. In medieval art and literature, the distinction started to fade. Sometimes, you'd see a creature with the beautiful face and voice of a siren but the snatching, violent nature of a harpy. Shakespeare, for example, mixes them up. In The Tempest, the spirit Ariel appears as a harpy to torment the shipwrecked nobles, but the imagery used is more aligned with divine punishment than simple monstrousness. By the time we get to the Renaissance, the siren had almost completely transformed into the mermaid, a beautiful woman from the waist up and a fish from the waist down. This visual change moved her permanently into the water, while the harpy remained a creature of the air. Yet, the idea of a beautiful, singing creature luring sailors to their doom remained, and the name Siren stuck to it, even if the creature looked more like a mermaid. This brings us to modern pop culture. Think about the movie Jason and the Argonauts, the 1963 classic. It features a terrifying encounter with harpies who torment Phineas, sticking very closely to the original myth. But think about pirate. The phrase Siren's Call is everywhere in pirate lore and movies like Pirates of the Caribbean, where they are depicted as beautiful, but deadly mermaid-like creatures. The harpy, meanwhile, has largely been relegated to the world of fantasy gaming, like Dungeons & Dragons, where she often appears as a monstrous, shrieking bird woman, a low-level monster for adventurers to fight. The siren has retained a sense of mystique and deadly beauty, while the harpy has become more of a straightforward monster. Ultimately, the Siren's myth seems to have won the popularity contest. Why? Perhaps because the story is more compelling. The idea of being lured to your death by something beautiful and irresistible is a more tragic and romantic notion than being attacked by a disgusting, screeching beast. The siren represents a psychological threat, the danger of our own desires. The harpy represents a physical threat, a monster to be slain. In storytelling, psychological threats often leave a deeper, more lasting impression. So, to recap our showdown, harpies are the monstrous, freaking agents of divine punishment, focused on physical torment. Sirens are the beautiful, enchanting singers who use psychological warfare, luring victims to their death with promises of knowledge and pleasure. One is an agent of justice, the other a force of nature. One attacks with claws and filth, the other with melody and magic. While both are formidable, their methods and myths are worlds apart. The harpy is a nightmare you see coming. The siren is a beautiful dream that you don't realize is a nightmare until you're already lost. So, the next time you hear a strange song on the wind, you'd better hope it's just a harpy's shriek. At least then, you'll know to run. Thank you so much for joining me on this mythological deep dive. It's been a blast untangling the tales of these two incredible creatures. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about the fascinating world of myths and legends, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure. Until next time, stay curious.